I've been an economist for 25 years, over 25 years now. I studied at university. I then joined the UK Treasury, where I was an economic advisor working on, among other things, the global economy as well as fiscal issues. I covered Asia for a while, briefing UK ministers on that part of the world. And then I joined Capital Economics in 2006, principally to work on emerging markets, set up our emerging market coverage. That took me all over the world. I've worked in New York for a long period of time before coming back to London to be the Group Chief Economist. Now, what makes economics so interesting, I think, is that it sits at the intersection of so many different things. It sits at the intersection of markets, financial markets, jobs markets, prices affect our everyday lives, and of course, politics and geopolitics, which is what the book's about. Well, so most people I think would point to the election of Donald Trump for the first time in 2016 as the watershed moment when the global orthodoxy that had prevailed since the post-Cold War era has started to break down. Of course, we had tariffs, multilateralism replaced by unilateralism, pushing back against countries, including, of course, China. I mean, actually, in the book, I dated the watershed moment slightly earlier. I think it came at some point between the global financial crisis in 2008 and the ascension of President Xi to the Chinese leadership in 2012. I think before that period, it was still possible to believe that integration would help to spread global prosperity as well as global peace. It would spread liberal values too. The global financial crisis, I think, revealed some of the fragilities and vulnerabilities that had been allowed to build during the 1990s and 2000s, and globalization became a convenient scapegoat for those. Then with Xi, the idea that China would, as a result of integrating into the global economy, liberalize at the same time, I think that went out of the window too. Actually, Xi showed that he had every intention not of liberalizing, but of harnessing global trade and technology flows to challenge hegemony and to turn China into a global superpower. So I think that watershed moment came somewhere between 2008 and 2012. And in that sense, President Trump is a symptom rather than a cause of what's going on. So there's a chapter in the book, it's called Where Could It All Go Wrong? The central scenario mapped out in the book is one where we get some pretty extreme fracturing in between these blocks, but it's contained in strategically important areas. But there's lots of ways in which actually you can envisage many more worst case scenarios. For the US, the idea that it turns inward on itself pushes away its allies. That is a key risk for the US. The key risk for the rest of the world, though, I think, is that actually these two blocks, through an ever-intensifying rivalry, come into conflict. You know, that is certainly something to keep you awake at night. There's lots of flashpoints, Taiwan being the most obvious. There's others in the South China Sea. But if there's one thing that keeps you awake at night, it's the prospect of some kind of conflict between the US and China in the future.